Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome Leader Jeffries here, and very shortly Speaker Emerita Pelosi will be joining us as well to talk a little bit about the climate situation and the failure of the United States to be present at the Conference of the Parties in Belém, Brazil, other than yours truly. I'm not only grateful to the leader and the speaker for being here, but my travel there was facilitated by the Sustainable Energy and Environment Coalition, which is a House organization that helped get me there, because for the first time in CODEL history that I'm aware of, the State Department refused to support or facilitate my travel or my credentialing. My credentials don't say United States of America. They say Global Legislators Organization for a Balanced Environment, GLOBE, because the State Department refused to support this. That's how bad the Trump administration has become. I went there to make 4 points. One, Trump does not represent the United States of government on matters related to climate. He represents the fossil fuel industry, and specifically his big billionaire fossil fuel donors when it comes to climate matters. The United States is still very solid on climate action. He just has chosen to represent his crooked billionaire donors. The second is carbon pricing is essential. The good things that have come out of COP so far mean that the plane crashes higher up the mountain. But if you want to get the plane over the mountaintop safely, you've got to have carbon pricing. And the best carbon pricing on the planet right now is the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism in the European Union. And my mechanism was to stand fast against any Trump attacks and be ready to stand against them when they come. The third is that we are seeing globally signs of the great climate insurance collapse. It's been warned of in the United States now by the Federal Reserve, by Aon Insurance, by the Freddie Mac, the chief economist. The Economist magazine has warned of a $25 trillion hit to global real estate markets because climate risk makes insurance unmanageable, which makes mortgages unavailable, which makes property values fall, which leads to 2008-style recession. That's the cascade, and you could see it in the New York Times piece yesterday that showed how Louisiana property values are already falling from the climate risk. The last point I made is it's about damn time we told this story truthfully with the villains in it. We wouldn't be where we were if the fossil fuel industry had not run a long and fraudulent campaign of climate denial. And we wouldn't be where we are if the fossil fuel industry had not, since Citizens United, used its power to spend unlimited dark money in politics and threaten and promise to spend unlimited dark money in politics to prevent reasonable, sensible climate action from happening. This is a story that has villains, and we need to talk about it in those terms. And what we'll do is I'll recognize Leader Jeffries right now. When Speaker Pelosi gets here, we'll interrupt for her. When he's done, if Speaker Pelosi is not here, we'll take a few questions and wait for Speaker Emerita Pelosi. Leader Jeffries, thank you, sir, for being here.
Well, good afternoon. It's an honor and a privilege to be here in the United States Senate side of the Capitol, and certainly with Senator Whitehouse, who's been an extraordinary leader on so many issues of importance, not simply to the people of Rhode Island, but the people of this great country and throughout the world, particularly as it relates to the climate crisis. Now, from the very beginning of this Congress, the very beginning of this presidency, there's been an unwillingness by Donald Trump and House Republicans and Senate Republicans to deal with issues of importance to the American people, particularly as it relates to the cost of living crisis that we have in this country and the various reasons why it continues to get worse in the United States of America. It's shameful that the Trump administration and the United States government chose not to be involved and engaged at the most recent COP conference, essentially ceding leadership on this issue in the world to our rival, China, and the Chinese Communist Party, while leaving America and Americans behind. Now, there's a direct connection between the climate crisis, which continues to grow more urgent by the day, and the rise of extreme weather events that are not a partisan issue because they hit blue states, purple states, and red states all across America. A direct connection between the climate crisis and the rise of extreme weather events that threaten the health, the safety, and the well-being of the American people, and a direct connection between the rise of extreme weather events and the homeowners insurance crisis that exists now in state after state after state. Homeownership has become unaffordable in far too many places, ripping away the possibility of home ownership for millions of Americans. And we know that home ownership has always been central to the great American dream. And so it's incredibly important that we deal with the climate crisis because there is only one Earth. There is no planet B. We have no other option. We have to deal with protecting God's green Earth. But we also should deal with the climate crisis because the absence of doing it causes life in America to just continue to become more unaffordable, particularly in this instance as it relates to both the home insurance crisis and the rise in electricity costs and utility bills all across the country because of the administration's assault on the progress that was made related to standing up a clean energy economy under the leadership of Speaker Pelosi, Senator Whitehouse, Democrats in the House and the Senate, and of course, the Biden administration. Republicans have taken a sledgehammer to the clean energy economy, which hurts our ability to both deal with the climate crisis and hurts our ability to drive down costs for everyday Americans. And I look forward to the continued leadership of Senator Whitehouse and, of course, the continued leadership on this issue by our Speaker Emerita, Nancy Pelosi, who has been a champion on so many issues for the children, of course, at all times, for the country, the Constitution, the Congress, and, of course, decisively for the climate. It's now my honor to yield to Speaker Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Leader. I almost called you Mr. Speaker. Just a few more months. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Whitehouse, for hosting us here today, but also for your tremendous leadership on the ongoing, your relentless, persistent determination to save the planet for the children. And I saw some of it on my phone that you presented, your visit to Brazil. And I want to associate myself with the remarks of the distinguished House Democratic leader, Mr. Jeffries, because he put it all in perspective from being God's creation to the kitchen table of the American people in terms of the cost. One other part of it that he referenced in terms of natural disasters cost people, family, life, livelihood, character of their communities, but also cost the national treasury hundreds of billions of dollars to make up for this. So what is the point of this, except that they're in the pocket of the fossil fuel industry? We're there to use every resource we have to save the planet, to make things affordable for people. My invitation to be here was to talk in a little bit of a historic thing. My first COP, it was so early they didn't even call it COP. It was 1992 in Brazil. Our delegation was led by Senator Al Gore. While we were there, he made one of the most spectacular Save the Planet speeches you ever heard, right after the Dalai Lama. It was a religious and a scientific meeting in Brazil. Then we couldn't find him. We were supposed to all have dinner. We couldn't find him. He was called away by Bill Clinton to ask if he wanted to be Vice President of the United States. So that's just placing it in time and history. I just left Al Gore at the funeral of Dick Cheney, and in those days, this was not, we had bipartisan delegation to go to some of these meetings. That was then, and this is now. This is so important to our society, it's a challenge of a generation. This issue is, of course, a values issue. That's been said again and again. But let's start with it's a health issue for our children, clean air, clean water, just saving the planet for them. It's an economic issue in terms of green technologies and for us to be preeminent in the world instead of cutting off the funding for tax credits that enable us to be that, as they are doing with the IRA bill. It's a security issue. Security issues, we go around the world and study migration and the rest, much migration, especially from, well, the Northern Triangle in Central America. Many people were coming to the United States because of drought. They couldn't farm, and they didn't have food that they were growing for themselves. So it's a migration issue, and a migration issue is a security issue. So it's health, it's economic, it's a security issue because, well, we have the encroachment of deserts, the rising of the sea levels, the droughts, floods, everything else that goes with it, as the distinguished leader mentioned, that so many of the natural disasters. And it is a values issue, as was mentioned. If you believe as I do that this is God's creation, then we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards. But even if you don't, we all agree that we owe it to our children as a value to pass on this planet in a way that is sustainable. And they have no belief in science. That it's the strangest thing. If science says this is what is causing the more intensity of storms and the rest of that, and government says we should do this, they don't believe in science, and they don't believe in governance. So two no's do not make a right. So we have a real problem here. And I will just close, did I say that already? By saying this. On this subject, and you both have taken us to this place, we have to have truth. We have to have truth in how this is all presented. That's not what they're doing. And we have to have trust in the policies, in the appeal that we're making to the American people to understand the connection of their kitchen table, their energy bills, and the rest. Second, in closing, when I was Speaker the first time, this is my flagship issue, President Bush was president, we passed the most fantastic energy bill working together. He wanted nuclear, I wanted renewables. We had a big celebration and a very big bill. President Bush, Nancy Pelosi as Speaker. And of course, we then went from energy, which is part of the climate issue, but then to the climate bill and passed the climate bill in the House. We couldn't get it passed in the Senate. It was, filibuster, don't want to go into that. But then, under President Biden, we were able to do that with the IRA legislation. So progress has been made. Now they're pulling it back. And why? Because it doesn't even go through the brain. Just the money goes in the pocket, the vote goes on the board, and the president insists on it. With that, I yield back.
Questions?
My question is for Speaker Emerita Pelosi. The Trump administration has repeatedly undercut efforts to address climate change, including removing the United States from the Paris Climate Accord and more recently, obviously, not offering any U.S. representation to COP30. Do you think that any efforts to ameliorate the climate crisis could be made under this administration?
Well, I'm going to yield to you because you just came back and you saw the enthusiasm that 80 countries had that.
I think it's going to be difficult. But I think the more the spotlight goes onto the Trump administration for its corruption, for the fossil fuel industry, for his donors. And the more we can compare that corruption and the terrible policy that it creates against where the American people want to be, it creates another wedge between the Trump administration and the people. And as particularly our House colleagues come to the November election, that wedge between the Trump administration and the people begins to have a big effect in those elections. And so I think you've seen it beginning with the Epstein dramas, but I think this is another issue that shows that Trump is not aligned with the American people, that he can't be trusted to protect people's pocketbooks in their electric utility bills, in their homeowners insurance, in their home values, and that that becomes a powerful political issue that gives us the opportunity to correct their corrupt policies.
I would add that mobilization has been my own thing. I say inside maneuvering to get things done, but outside mobilization makes it all the better. And the outside mobilization on this issue among young people is very vital, to the point that the distinguished senator made about us winning the House. When Speaker Jeffries takes over, we won't be able to get new legislation because doubtful that there's an understanding of truth and trust on this subject in the White House. But we will be able to hold in check some of those things. And on that point, I yield to you.
Well, I associate myself with everything that Speaker Emerita Pelosi and Senator Whitehouse have said. As House Democrats, we plan on focusing the attention of the American people on three issues where there's a big difference between Democrats and Republicans: affordability, health care, and corruption. And in this particular space, as it relates to dealing with the climate crisis, a corrupt bargain has been struck, as Speaker Pelosi indicated, between these outside special interests, Donald Trump, and Republicans in the Congress, which is why there's no action in dealing with the climate crisis, because they are following the perspectives of GOP big donors. That's corruption in real time, and it's having an adverse impact on the American people.
Yeah, to Leader Jeffries and Speaker Emerita Pelosi, it seems like in recent months, climate has sort of fallen lower on the list of talking points that Democrats here in Congress are bringing up. How do you think you can, if at all, keep focus on this issue?
I don't think that's the case at all. Affordability is the issue, and this is an affordability issue in every way, in terms of jobs, in terms of cost of living, and the rest. And also in terms of education, STEM, training young people for the future. That's who we are. But I will say this, just to that point in the previous question. Donald Trump is the worst president of the United States for America's children. The worst president American children have ever had in terms of their health, their education, the clean, safe environment in which they can thrive, including safety from gun violence, I would add, the job, economic security of their families, and a future that is fair and just in terms of yes, the planet, the air they breathe, but also the economic situation they are in. And he is giving them as a gift a $600 billion increase in the national debt for them to pay off as he takes away health care from them, takes down the Department of Education, and the rest of it. And that to this very point, the air they breathe, the water they drink, he doesn't care.
Thank you. Well, any and all of you, given that the renewable liquid fuel incentives in IRA, it's one of the few clean fuel, climate-related provisions to survive the current administration and Republican majority. Could you address how you view the role of liquid biofuels in reducing emissions, and do you support ethanol, E15 legislation that farm state legislators are trying to push through?
Well, let me generally comment on the assault on the Inflation Reduction Act and the clean energy economy. And as Democrats, we're united in pushing back against the damage that was done, notwithstanding the fact that there were several, more than 20 House Republicans who said, hands off the clean energy tax credits and provisions in the Inflation Reduction Act, and then, of course, bent the knee to Donald Trump as soon as he ordered them to decimate the overwhelming majority. So we think that there's a lot of repair work that has to be done in order to get back to the place where we are standing up a clean energy economy for the good of the climate, for the good of communities across the country, the jobs that are created, the economic development, the lowering of electricity prices, particularly in an environment now where, because of the rise of artificial intelligence, we're going to see exponential demand for energy, and we shouldn't be cutting things back. So in terms of ethanol and that particular dynamic, it's in the mix of things, right? Important to remain a part of the picture related to the future, but I'm really concerned about the damage that was done to renewables, to wind, to solar, and to the opportunity that really was groundbreaking coming out of the Inflation Reduction Act.
As the ranking member on Environment and Public Works, I've told Republicans that it's something I'm certainly willing to consider, but waiting for their first offer. Should we do one more, and then the speaker and the leader have to go?
Speaking of climate and the administration, tomorrow the administration has announced it's going to issue new regulations, pretty much gutting the Endangered Species Act. One of them says that it will not be able to consider matters such as climate change in listing species as endangered. I wonder, what's your reaction to that? Are you going to oppose that?
Of course, this is all in keeping with their, well, let me say, use the president's language. He said this whole climate issue is the biggest con job in American history, always projecting his own vulnerability onto others. President Trump is the biggest con job in American history. And so what they're doing, again, this is God's creation. Everything in nature is connected. You can't just say we're going to do this or that and connect it from everything else in nature. But it's just as that's how they treat people. We don't want to have any differentiation with people either. That's why you have to have truth. You have to make sure people are not apathetic about listening to what is at stake here. Truth and trust in the collaboration that we want to have. Collaboration, the transparency of it all. And what they're doing, that's almost irreversible. That's why it's really important for us to win this election so that we at least can hold up some of that. And then hopefully we can have some truth and trust in the Supreme Court so they don't let him get away with destroying God's creation.
One of the points I made in Brazil is that at events like the COP, you see the smiling mask of the fossil fuel industry.
Oh my God, they're into heaven.
But if you want to see their true face, you look at what they are having the Trump administration do. And the depravity of the corruption, the depravity of the lying, and the disinterested in anybody's well-being other than the big donors, that's the true face of the fossil fuel industry, and we need to recognize that. Thank you all very much, and thank you particularly to the leader and Speaker Meredith for coming over.
Thank you. Did you want to say something on that?
No,
Well, what about the Endangered Species Act?
Okay.
yeah. The failure to protect endangered species represents an assault on the divine creativity of Almighty God, and we plan to strongly oppose it. It's an outrageous, unconscionable, unhinged, and un-American statement. We've issued a strong response. The Democrats have